We are in section 11.1. The book says the objections are actually opportunities to build relationships. Now, why would a customer object? The customer feels like they have heard enough from you during the presentation, but they are not convinced. So they really want to know whether it is suiting them or not. So if they ask questions, that is a really good sign. If they don't ask questions and if they ignore, that is the bad sign. Okay, so you don't want that bad sign. So objections are not rejections, but are invitations for more information that eventually leads to a yes. Okay, so that is the thing. How can you take them to tell an yes? So that is an important thing you have to pay attention to. Objections are also called as sales objections, are generally defined as prospect questions or hesitations. They are hesitating about your company, about saying yes to your product right away. So what can you do about that? That is where you have to think about using all these different techniques of finding a common ground, pivoting, finding value, much better value that you will be able to sell them on. So these are the things that you have to think about. Now also you can do one another important thing, that is consider objections even before they appear. Before they occur, you have to anticipate and say, I know that you are interested in knowing how to pay for the product, and we have a payment scheme, or we have various ways of doing it. You don't have to pay, you can just rent it for the first 4 or 5 months and then you can pay it later. So there are various things that you have to think about when it comes to taking care of the objections that the customer is raising with you. Okay, and also you need to pay attention to why the prospects object. Why do they object? Because they don't have enough money. If they don't have enough money, then probably you have to think about a payment plan or some other way of getting paid. No perceived need. They feel like they have money, but they feel like their existing competitor is good enough, supplier is good enough. So they are working with your competitor and they feel they are comfortable with that. So in that case, how are you going to show value? Or they may feel like, oh, everything is going good, don't fix what it's not broken, right? So maybe there is no sense of urgency. In that case also they may not show interest. So in those cases, if you really get to the bottom of the reason why they are not buying from you, maybe you will be able to address it by asking more questions, by keeping the conversation going. Okay, sometimes there may not be a trust with your company. Maybe they bought the product from your company from the earlier salesperson. Maybe the salesperson did not provide good service, so they kind of moved away from your company. So in those cases, you should be asking yourself, hey, you know what can I do so that I can make these people as my customers? And also there will surely be objections, and that is a good sign. Okay, so when the prospects actually object, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to be sweating and saying, oh my God, I never expected this question at all? No, you're not going to say that. You are going to say, I anticipated it and I am going to address it. And you need to be ready with your answers. And you have already sold the product to one of your customers and they also had a similar question, similar objection, and how did you handle it? You can use that so that you can really answer their concerns in an effective manner. So keep thinking about it, because these are all very important things. Now you have to recognize one another thing, that is objections are likely to occur at several points during the sales process. You approach them, you wanted a meeting, they said no, that's an objection. You were presenting and one of the important people that wanted to come for the meeting could not come, and because of that they say they cannot buy from you. Now that is another type of objection. How are you going to handle each and every one of these objections? And that means it's best to be prepared for objections at every step in the selling process. If they say they don't have time, but they are traveling from their office to the airport, and if you can just hitch a ride with them, and on the way if you can tell a little bit about your product, maybe there is your sales meeting. You did not anticipate that, but you have to wing it at the last minute, and you will be able to do that if you are seriously thinking about it. You have to know your prospect and be ready to incorporate objections into your sales presentation. You have already had some type of objections. How did you deal with those objections in the past? By talking about that, you will be able to overcome some of the objections so that you can make a positive inroads with your customer that you are dealing with. Now, there will be objections during, say, when you are contacting them for the first time, okay, during the approach phase. That is, when you are during setting up the meeting, setting up the initial meeting, let us say. So it can happen, and you have to be thinking about how are you going to address it. So here is an example. The prospect or your potential customer says, no thanks, I'm satisfied with my current supplier. How are you going to respond? You can respond by saying, may I ask who you are currently using? Now that's a good question. You are asking for a name, and they are giving you a name. We work with Advanced, and they have been doing a good job. Okay, so they are using only the word good, not great or phenomenal, right? And that is where you have to say, Advanced is very good at what they do. You are not, saying bad things about your competitor. You are saying they are good. Did you know that our company, Simone, offers a money back guarantee? In other words, if you are not completely satisfied with the conversion or the service, we will completely refund your money. It would be worth 30 minutes of your time to learn more about it. And also you take to the next step where you are actually trying to make a presentation on Tuesday at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? So the thing is, as a salesperson, it's you that have to take the initiative, and you have to ask more questions. We already talked about spin questions, right? Situation, problem, implication, and needs, payoff. So those type of questions are very important when it comes to finding out why they are objecting. And once you are able to set up that appointment, and you will be able to make some positive connection with that customer. In some cases, your response can be actually comparing the specifics and advantages of your product or services with that of your competitors. That can also be done. Okay, I know that you are working with Advanced and we are Simone. Here is a chart that we created showing all the things that they can do or not do and what we can do or not do in terms of quality, in terms of performance and durability. And by that also, you will be able to get the attention of your customer, the potential customers. Sometimes the objections can happen, say at the time of, let's talk about the situation and then try to see when this objection occurred. The prospect says, I am a little concerned about the financing. And you, I am glad you brought that up. I am going to address that in the next slide, which I think will provide you with the information you are looking for. That means this was an objection during the presentation. So you are sitting or standing in front of a group of potential customers from that particular company, and they are worried about financing, how they are going to pay for this $1 million product. And now you have it in your slide because you anticipated it. You remember that's one of the first things that you have to do. You have to anticipate and be prepared so that you will be able to address it directly. So that's the major thing. Now, there can also be objections during the trial close. So you are asking, how many units would you like to order today? If you ask that question, so let us see how this conversation goes. The prospect says, this is really an interesting option for us to pursue, but we are planning on launching our service much sooner than your timeline suggests. I'm not sure implementation timing will work for us. So it seems like their concern is not about buying the product or paying for it. They're all okay with that. Just the timelines don't coincide. Now, how are you going to answer that? Let us see what this salesperson does. When are you planning on launching your new service? So you are asking a direct question. Hey, when are you thinking about it? Then they say, we want to have everything in place and tested in less than 45 days. So only 1.5 months. And that means, what are you going to respond as a salesperson? Here is a nice way how you can respond. So it sounds like the biggest challenge is the installation date. So you identified where the problem is. I can talk to our head engineer. So you are just a salesperson. You may not have the technical skills, but you will talk to the technical person within your company and see if we can change the installation date. So now you are proposing a new thing. So you want to work with your customer according to their date. If we can guarantee installation within 30 days, will you commit to a 2-year agreement? So you are taking it much beyond what they would want. They wanted it in 45 days and you are saying we will try to do it in 30 days. And when this objection came about, when you are trying to close. Okay, so these are the important things that I want you to think about, and you have to have your answers ready to go. So these are the important things that I want you to think about, that the objections can come up at any time, and objections are not bad. They are actually an opportunity for you to cultivate relationships. Okay, it is all about building relationships. So in the next section, we will talk about what are the other types of ways you can address objections.